Dun. Singing our theme song. Dun, dun, dun. I don't remember how it goes. Dun, 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 dun. Something like that.
Good morning, sunshine.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good, good. Yeah, our intro music's not working, so we were singing it. Dun, 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 dun.
Done a good job.
You're like, can you not?
Say
Can you
that.
not?
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Youngstown's Talk Channel. Kelin and I, who share unpopular opinions on a regular basis, are here to get your blood pumping in the mornings and talk about
Yeah.
things that fan is way too much.
It's a bit loud. It feels nice, but it's a bit much. We have a giant fan because the studio is 100 degrees.
It is not 100 degrees.
All right, it's 95 degrees.
It is not 95 degrees. It's nowhere even close.
It's hot
It is
in
probably
here.
74.
That's probably why MLO bros always have those cutoffs on, huh? Because it's so hot in
No,
here.
they just they don't have no decorum whatsoever. So they're just defying and being the rebels that they are.
That too.
All right. So Mark Zuckerberg's birthday is today. So happy birthday to
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg. So let's talk about successful people for a little bit, because this
Okay.
is it's a cool topic. There's a lot of envy that goes along with how we respect people throughout history that achieved a certain level of success.
Yeah.
So when you're in the public spotlight and you do something like a Facebook, like an Amazon, like a Tesla, your critics take shots at you because they are massively jealous of what you've done, even so much as to minimize the accomplishment of that success. So you have a bunch of people who have not achieved the success, so they don't even know what the ingredients of success are.
Yeah.
They don't know what the sacrifices of success are, and so they try to minimize because they have no understanding of what it is. So let's talk about it a little bit. How do you feel about Mr. Zuckerberg?
Really strong opinions about him. Of course, I've always heard that, like, isn't there some sort of thing out there that he like stole this idea?
They say
or
this about
something?
every accomplished person.
Yeah.
Every single accomplished person that either their accomplishments weren't as great as everybody thinks because they took the idea from somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't their idea. They pushed someone else out and they ran with it or something of that nature.
Okay, so
usually
I can
happens.
name probably the top 10 companies, right? Microsoft, they created a product, they harvested it from other people. In this case, IBM. Apple, they harvested the idea from Microsoft. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all of them didn't invent the thing, but yet they still propelled it to a place where about their product. So even if the attributes of having success is that you invented the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
You wrote the lyrics, you played the instruments, fine. If that's the only way to be highlighted as an accomplished person, but you're not going to be able to carry that standard anywhere else. It's not even a standard if we refer to it, but we don't hold anybody accountable to that standard.
What about you might know this?
Yeah.
What about in the instance of like the light bulb?
Right.
And we hear like somebody invented it, but someone else got credit
Same thing.
for it.
If you had candles for a while, there's probably a bunch of people that were working on the invention of making light through the use of electricity.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a bunch of people who had it, and there was one person who put the lab time in and got the patent for it and produced it and made it sure that we're now dependent on that in everyday life because of those actions. Who cares if there was somebody else who was also working on it? They didn't do it. Now there's a legitimate one where Marconi and Tesla, right?
Mhm.
There are accredited things where people got credit for the thing when it was totally stolen from another person. Tesla, this is sort of like why he's one of my historical mentors, is the one thing, the cautionary tale of don't trust people at all because what they're capable of doing, from the generators, where Tesla would have been probably the wealthiest person on the planet. He signed a contract with Westinghouse. Westinghouse financed his first laboratories and his first experiments. And he signed a contract where he got a percentage of production for all of the generators that were ever produced. And Westinghouse during, it was probably great right before the Great Depression, had really hard times. And Tesla tore up the royalties contract with Westinghouse, which then he had no obligation to pay anything towards Tesla. And now he would still be collecting those royalties today, or his legacy would.
Why did he tear it up?
Because he was a really nice guy that believed in people.
There's your mistake.
So yes, you learn, right, that people are awful. But again, the people that made these accomplishments, at least we can fish them out historically and really say, okay, let's learn from them. If we want to teach people how to find success, use them as the, sort of like the gold standard, learn from them. But we want to criticize them and minimize their accomplishments. It just doesn't sit right with me.
So now it's like, anything you create, you've got to immediately patent, copyright something.
That is part of the business process. So let's just say somebody invented a vehicle, right? And they're really terrible about patenting their ideas and getting the intellectual properties. So what I did was I either copied them, right, which I'm free to do if they don't have anything patented. I used them as reference, built the same thing, patented it, got the intellectual property, licensed it or produced it myself. Is that product really mine? Meaning that I knew how to do the stuff that they didn't know how to do? Or were unwilling to do, right? I'm still the person that brought it into the marketplace and found success. Should I have gone over to the dude who didn't know how to do that stuff and taught him, thinking that somehow he'd cut me in for teaching him how to do it the right way? Of course not.
Well, and were these people, like in the instance of like Mark Zuckerberg, did he not pay his partner that he was working on this with, or buy out, or anything of that nature? Like, it wasn't just I'm now the successful one when it comes to Facebook, and someone else is like, but what about this guy? Like, did he buy them out?
So they were really close to inventing the same product. The Winklevoss twins were working on something very.
Their name is Winklevoss?
Yes. And they were very close to inventing something that was very similar, connecting college kids and having a social apparatus for college kids, and very close to what Mark did. So you can make the argument that he saw somebody doing something and he just ended up doing it better, right?
Yeah.
And stealing the idea. Okay. There are very few ideas. I bet you somebody's working on AI and somebody's going to see what somebody else did and do it too. And then somebody's going to win. And,
I mean, don't we have this everywhere? We have this in restaurants. We have this you could have a lemonade stand.
Yeah.
But if someone else builds a lemonade stand and they market it and it looks nicer and the product is better and they get people to come see them and their location is great and they send flyers out, or maybe they deliver and they're hugely successful, does someone else say,
did it?
I had the lemonade stand first. That's not fair.
Yes.
Well,
that is just envy and jealousy that somebody did something that you could not or wouldn't do, and they found success and you didn't. So there's a lot of jealousy and envy once that goes down. You feel bad when somebody does it better than you. But that's what success is about in the brutal marketplace of ideas. We benefit from all of that brutality because products get better. Yeah. And if you are, let's just say you hang on to an idea and you're making money on it, like Kodak, right? And they're like, we're not doing digital cameras. Look at all these people buying all this film from us. We're going to stick right here in film photography. And then somebody comes along and says, digital. And they're like, hey, right?
Yeah.
Kodak deserved to lose, right? Because they had a good thing and they sat on it. So the innovation cycles that happen, we benefit from those. And it's not helpful to minimize the people who take the risks, make these products, right? Because some of these things like Tesla and SpaceX, they could have gone south and not a single person would be there trying to claim the fame or whatever if they would have gone south, right? So F those people.
And then what kills me too, there's two things that kill me when it comes to hating on somebody that reached a certain level of success. One is then, because of their jealousy, I'm guessing, then you start hearing they're dumb. They don't actually know anything.
100%.
Like when somebody says Elon Musk is dumb, I'm like,
are you insane?
Wow.
Are you insane?
Like, are you that insecure and childish and unwilling to give someone props because you disagree with them? Because clearly you're not that dumb if you can become one of the richest men on the planet.
That's right.
Like, obviously you've done something right. And then two is and this is probably more so on like a smaller level, maybe if you're not like national fame successful, but successful enough that maybe you own nice things. And somebody says, "Oh, must be nice. Must
That's
be
jealous
nice."
and envy, two of the vices, the deadly
Yes.
sins. And
Oh, must be nice to be able to go blah, blah, blah and have this. And I'd be like, do you want to see the work that went into it? Do you want me to tell you what to do? And then you can get up early and stay up late and miss out on things and work on the weekends and do this. And then you can have that. Do you want to see what goes into having that? No, just must be nice to have that. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
But see, the utility in this is jealousy and envy is supposed to fuel for you to make changes and emulate other people to find that success too, right? So,
Yeah.
for instance, Henry Ford, one of my favorite Henry Ford stories, where they actually took him in a courthouse and in front of in front of his peers, and they tried to ask him general knowledge questions about history and whatever, just to frame it so that Henry Ford's just really dumb, right? And so one of my favorite answers were, they asked him how many soldiers were in a certain war, or how many soldiers went into, we'll say, Germany. And he had a flippant answer. He said probably more than came home, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he got tired of them trying to embarrass him, and he said, "Listen, I don't know everything, but I have a phone on my desk that has a button. And if there's any specialized knowledge or general knowledge that I need, I hit that button and someone comes in my office and gives me that information." So the words weren't that he had all of the information, is he had access to all of the information.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk didn't invent Tesla if he bought an engineering design from Lotus, right? He still knew what to do with it and used something to make something even greater than the thing that he bought or used or emulated.
Yeah, I feel like anybody can just go and memorize statistics, facts, numbers, whatever.
Right.
It's not what you know as far as trivia, but it's, do you know how to find the answers? Do you know how to learn? Do you know how to take in information and then maybe incorporate that information into something else? That's intelligence, not, oh, I can randomly name off percentages.
That's exactly right. But the other side is trying to minimize that person and take wind out of their sails, right? Try to minimize them and make them feel bad is what they're trying to accomplish. Even with Trump, I mean, nobody can argue that Trump didn't have successes. You don't get to the level, whether or not someone lent him money sometime or he had failed bankruptcies at a certain point. When you do a 1-for-1 comparison to where you as the critic are at and where he is at, he is better than you. Yeah. And if you can't live with that, then all you're going to do is take jealous shots at that person.
Yeah. And I get kind of defensive, like, when it comes to military. I hear this even, I hear my husband get this. My husband was able to retire by the time he was 40. And everyone's like, must be nice. Must be nice. You're only 40 and you're retired. Yeah. Well, take the last 20 years of your life, dodge bullets and bombs and body parts, and be have someone follow you around and attempt to kill you. And if you survive, you can retire too. But that doesn't sound as fun, does it? Or it's like, oh, by the way, beat your body up to the point that you're now in pain every single day of retirement, and then follow him around again and be like, must be nice, must be nice. Well, why don't you go do what he did to get there, and you tell me if it's nice.
And if they use those examples to better themselves and try to figure out what made them successful instead of like trying to bring those people down, I think we'd be better off for it. Yeah. Cutter says, remember MySpace. I do.
MySpace.
Dude's a genius. Dude's a freaking genius. Selling out when he did.
Yeah.
Capitalizing on that.
Oh. Whatever happened to Tom with MySpace?
Tom took his money and he just went away.
Oh.
Brilliance.
Did he like leave the country, you think? Or just?
I don't know. He just went off the radar.
Do you think Tom has a Facebook page?
No.
Probably not.
No. What he was able to accomplish with MySpace at the time where technology was a huge undertaking. And he probably sacrificed a lot of his youth, right, to accomplish that. So when he was out, he
Yeah.
was like, I never want to touch this kind of thing again.
You think he can just like live out his
Oh,
days
for
and
sure.
never work again?
For sure.
What kind of money do you think he got for MySpace?
I think he sold for what, 4 billion?
Oh yeah?
I'm going to look this up because
Yeah,
it's been a
let's
while.
look this up. I remember like the
400 million or
profile
4 billion, something
song
like that.
on MySpace and your top 5 friends. That's really when the whole like I think cattiness and cutthroatness of social media began.
Yeah, News Corp for $580 million.
$580 million.
Yep.
I was gonna say Justin Timberlake. I feel like he was part of it for something. So Justin Timberlake has some ownership of MySpace?
I guess.
But if
I guess.
MySpace is gone, what are they doing with it?
It still exists. I mean, if you go there, it goes to a website. It's not what it was before, but
It is?
yes.
I had my MySpace link for like a long time after MySpace was gone. But now I think it just goes nowhere.
No. It's a music thing.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, they revamped MySpace.
MySpace exists. I mean, you pay $500 million for it. You're going to make it into something.
Is that fairly new?
No, it's been there for a while. It wasn't doing
maybe
much.
just myspace.com/Kelin or whatever my page was is now nothing.
You've been deleted.
Yeah.
Kellen's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if you Google yourself, you might be able to find some MySpace remnants or something. Have you ever Googled yourself?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like what you see?
Oh, I'm looking at it just to make sure there isn't publications or shit talking or something, whatever. So
Like bad rumors and
yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
You ever found any?
No.
Oh, yeah. Mine's just like all my social media pictures or something like a relative did that I might have been mentioned somehow. Like many years ago when I was little, my grandfather ran for trustee in Youngstown. And so I was in a parade, I think. And so there was a little picture with my name in it. I don't know. I don't remember. I was little, but nothing exciting.
Okay. All right. So that's Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm not suggesting that you worship the people who have success. That's a completely different thing. But having respect for the successes of those people and emulating them so that instead of being jealous of who they are or where they got, that you too can follow in, on that path.
So would you share this mindset with people like the Kardashians? What about the people that you truly think have found this fame and fortune, and maybe it's not over something that you think is like virtuous or helpful?
And that's they are the exerciser of that principle where they found fame in there. I have no respect for that industry because it really capitalizes on vice here. So if some young girl goes and exposes herself on camera and makes success because she showed skin to someone, right? I can respect that she did that and she used whatever she had. I would argue that she probably has more than just physical things that she could have used to make money. And I condemn the people who, make that happen and give an opportunity to someone to demean themselves in that way.
Yeah.
Just like same thing with musicians. Like I can say like Taylor Swift, maybe at one time she was a songwriter and now she probably doesn't know how to play the instruments in her songs and she doesn't write the songs. She's a stage performer who reads off of that.
She does still
but
write.
What I'm using as an example,
Okay.
if there was a musician
that
did those things, would I have respect for Taylor Swift as a successful person? Yes. Would if you compared Taylor Swift to someone who played their own instruments and sang their own songs, that would be a higher level success than what Taylor is. But I'm not going to begrudge either of them for getting to success because there are musicians that aren't there, right?
Yeah. Or how about the musicians that like you hear this term like industry plant, where watch is being weird, where it's like they maybe right out the gate were given songs. Here's a songwriter. Here's a song we made. You just come in the studio and sing it and record it. Do you hold them to the same standard as the ones who write their own songs, even if they achieve the same level of fame?
We're talking about two different things. Either the level of success, yes or no, where do I have an appreciation for people who get to the pinnacle of their industry and the method in which they get there. And those are two different discussions. So yes, I will credit them for having achieved something that very rarely happens.
But but you feel some kind of way.
Not really.
Really?
I'd be condemning the method, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I've even seen, like, you see influencers all the time now. And I feel like now people are finally understanding this idea of like the 15 minutes of fame, because you see these internet sensations come and go and these influencers. And that's another thing. And I'll admit, I was probably fairly judgmental about in the past of, oh, must be nice. You put out a couple videos and you have all this money and you have all these things coming to you just for what? For putting out a video. But then you actually watch what goes into it and what goes into the editing and the time spent and the meetings. There's this one girl, I follow her on YouTube. She has a whole team because of this. And she talks about not only the time and the effort that goes into making these things, but you better be pretty introverted because you're working alone a lot. You have to go and record and you have to edit. And I'm like, well, those are things I never really thought about.
Well, yeah, but that's what we're talking about. Like, if you said must be nice and you were instantly put in the, okay, go, you go do it.
Yeah.
And if you can, then shut the F up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what you don't see is what it took prior to, right? So you want the retirement before you dodge bullets. Like, can I do the retirement thing without dodging bullets? Really what you're asking is the lazy version of it. So if I put 10 years into developing a product and then it becomes successful, there's no way you're going back to day one and watching me struggle and watch me take risks and watch me make the investment. You want the success right here. And that's the what must be nice.
Do you know, what's his name? Gary V?
Yeah.
What exactly does he do? Does he have a marketing company, I think?
Well, yeah, he originally ran his dad's wine operation.
Yeah.
And then he brought that to a mail order brand version. And then he went into motivational speaking and marketing company and whatnot.
Okay. Because I feel like he could be a good example of, if you see him now, you may sort of be like, oh, what's this guy? He's just big on social media. And now he's wealthy and successful, until you see all the content of him like 20 years ago, working and marketing and making videos and doing all these things and sort of having that entrepreneurial mindset. And now you know who he is.
Right.
Now you see all of his stuff.
We have instant gratification in our genetics now, where it doesn't happen right away. And that's why everyone will be stuck as employees forever, because they do not have the tolerance to things take longer than a 30-second commercial break.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. So it's laziness.
And then they see examples like Haktua or something, where somebody did get overnight, basically, fame, but that fizzles out.
Well, what does that teach you about it, though?
That it's unsustainable, that it's not real, that it's based off of...
You are crafted into this. Without the foundations of having gone through the whole process, you can't maintain it. Just like lottery winners don't stay rich once they win the lottery, because the foundation is what puts you there. And that's why these people deserve to be there. So my acid test is that if you take the person and you move them to another place where nobody knows their name, they put the mask on, can they become successful a second time? If it was a luck thing, then they won't be able to go somewhere else and be successful. If it's a talent thing, then they can go hide their identity and become that same success no matter where it is that they go.
Would you ever want to achieve the level of success and recognition that you would have to like go to some other country to find someone that isn't gonna like paparazzi you and know who you are?
It's just a different thing. Like, it's not the way that common and normal people see it. As you hit an achievement level and then like all of your problems disappear and life is just easy beyond that point. You just get handed a different set of them.
Yeah.
So when you're working through the grind, it's conditioning you up to the point where you can handle the new problems that you're about to be presented. You get to offload some of the other ones, the old ones, but then you get brand new ones. Mm-hmm. So it's more or less, you get into the arena that you are best suited to defend against the things that are going to kill you, is what it comes down to. And Haktua was put in an area where she was not ready for it. So, people who find success, either they make the news for some achievement and all of a sudden they get inundated. They're new to the scene. They get inundated with all of the things that are going to kill them. Right. And so they say yes to those things. And then those things end up killing you because you haven't gone along the way. Like who was talking to me before, and now all of a sudden who's talking to me now, and being suspicious of the people that are coming to you once they have success. They do not want, right?
Yeah.
Downside from
It's
you.
like,
I assure you.
Who's coming out of the woodwork?
They're
because
not
of
there to
something.
help you, right?
Yeah.
And so you get used to, like, someone who becomes a celebrity, and then people want to take their pictures and they want their autographs. You kind of get used to that at a certain point, and you're like, okay, here's the upside of that. You get this attention. And here's the downside. Like, people want to talk to me when I don't want to be talked to, and you got to almost craft yourself so that you are good in those environments, and not everybody's built for that.
People not only are just going to follow you around. I mean, not only is your privacy gone, but then you have like made up scandals now that you have to avoid. I mean,
and people attacking you, and people trying to minimize you.
People trying to like blackmail, I guess, really. Like, there are people that want to financially benefit off of things that they can say about you or paint you in a certain light. And so, yeah, it's funny. I mean, you always hear that old saying, like, walk a mile in someone's shoes. How many of us would choose our own problems over somebody else's once you see what it is they actually face?
Exactly.
But no, we've got keyboard warriors and people that think they know. And we do this even when we get into politics. It's like, all these people suddenly know how to run a country. Like, you've never spent a day in politics. You've probably never even managed a team at work, but you know how to run the world. You know how to make better decisions. You know how to do something the right way compared to somebody who's in it. And that to me is like, oh, if that doesn't show ignorance, I don't know what does.
See, I'm going to have you convinced that people are just awful, right?
I'm getting more and more convinced.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to have you give up on society.
On humanity.
Thinking that there's anybody worthy, because, and this is why I always go back to blaming the secularists, because they did this, right? Human beings are terrible, and they're just, if they are not given a reason not to be terrible, they will always go to terrible. And if they pretend to be not terrible, they're still really terrible. And what was the only thing that forced people into pursuing something that was outside of their self? Was religion. It was playing a huge role in keeping people conforming to not, the fallible man syndrome, right? And
I've been watching these podcasts. I can't think of the guy's name. He's a doctor something. He's been talking a lot with people about religion and a sense of morality and where does that come from. And, he'll talk to like atheists, for example, and they'll say, well, I don't need to believe in God to know right and wrong. I know it's wrong to kill people. I know it's, And he's like, okay, well, where do you get that standard? And he's like, because I just know. How do you just know? You're not born just knowing. Like, you don't just know things. Why do you feel that something is right or something is wrong? So where's your moral compass come from? If not, and it's like, and nobody can answer that. Nobody can answer that. They think you just know. And I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. I've never thought of it that way until recently, that we are ingrained with morals somehow. Some people might even say, oh, through your parents. Well, where did that come from? There is a general consensus of what is right and what is wrong. There is. So where does that come from? Religion?
Foundationally, it has crafted what you experience right now. So every secularist should go visit like the Dark Ages and times when, before organized religion was trying to sculpt civilizations into something that wasn't murdering and killing and pillaging. It was quite bad, right? It was quite bad. And it's only because religion foundationally changed society. And even when you rooted out the traditionalist religion, you still have the components that are built in generations of people that established, what's the word? Not established institutions. They established the institutions that they too were ingrained with the philosophies of that religion. So it's not like, do you kill people? Why don't you kill people? Right.
Yeah.
And so if you can't answer the why don't you kill people, and you don't have okay, so why didn't you kill somebody today?
Because it would be wrong.
Okay.
And I would feel bad.
And so moral, it's a moral thing. Okay. So that's important. There's reasons why you didn't kill somebody today. That if everybody had that philosophy, then you were 1 minute from being killed. And that seems like a bad idea. So we don't kill people because if everybody takes our lead on it, then everybody's killing everybody else. the golden rule.
Yeah.
And so the second thing is there's punishment. But what if there wasn't? What if every day was a purge day and nobody was looking over your shoulder? You be you, and you got total freedoms. We got anarchy. Let's not have any rules. And now, not only are the only thing keeping you from killing someone is that there's punishment. The punishment goes away, and now you're just free to do where your whims.
Yeah.
And now human beings won't just go kill someone, right? They will rationalize it because ingrained in us, we know that it's wrong to kill, but we need reasons now. Right? We need to say, well, they were a terrible person, or I was afraid of them, or they were Hitler. And now you've justified. Now it's not killing anymore. But now we got to go back to the original one. It was like, well, what if someone rationalized in killing me? What if I wasn't as great as I should have been, and then they killed me? So it would dump back off to treat other people. How do you want to be treated? Do you want to be killed? No, so you shouldn't kill. Boom. You only need one rule at this point, right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously, unless you're like a sociopath or something, that's kind of then when you need the laws is don't kill people if you don't feel bad about it.
But where does sociopath come from? Self, right?
Yeah, I was like, and then a mental health
So
disorder.
if we remove religion and now we're doing things that benefit ourselves and we're own pursuit, everybody becomes a sociopath because they're looking through everything through the prism of what benefits or as a consequence to me. We all become sociopaths on this trajectory.
Do you think as we sort of progress in things like the internet and social media and all this sort of all these vices we have that kind of let us be crappy human beings, do you think we'll start seeing things like narcissism and sociopathy
we're already there.
And all that?
We're already
increase?
there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're gonna be put in the simulation to contain us and what damage we can do to other people because we're this freaking close. I am telling you, we're this close.
So you're someone who believes that AI will eventually sort of become the norm. How do we make sure our AI does not adopt the same issues?
But it will. It's learning from us. So this was a big discussion over this weekend, where in the beginning of AI, we thought like it's going to get so smart that it's going to really minimize what human beings and their impact is on things, and they're kind of expendable, and machines and software's better at everything anyway, and they were going to discount us and put us into the waste bin. But now the argument is that they are incompetent and they're going to destroy humanity through incompetence rather than superior intelligence.
Oh boy.
So here, let me frame this. So there's a couple of the AI chatbots. Okay, you can have conversations, and it gets stuff wrong a lot.
Yeah.
But so we did one the other day. Said, hey, draw me a picture of somebody with a beard, and you give it an instruction sets, and it does the thing. And then so I was like, they drew this thing, and it had no beard. And I was like, hey, the image you gave me didn't have a beard. And it said, oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes this happens, blah, blah, blah. And it drew me. Here's one with a beard. And it came out, and it still didn't have a beard. Okay. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like the thing you gave me is lacking a beard. And it apologized, and it said the reason why. But then it drew another one without the beard. So it has these weird echoes where it doesn't know when it's wrong. And it starts from the same origin and gives you the same response. So let's just say we put it in a fighter jet and had it bomb someplace. But in its echoes, it got something wrong, but it did it anyway. Even when being corrected, it couldn't take new information and correct the problem. It has a built-in incompetence in it.
This is why I don't like self-driving vehicles. Because it's going to crash, or there's going to be something in the road that it's not used to. And I'm afraid it doesn't have the brain to think and problem solve like a human does, because it's just based off of other information.
Yeah. So its engineering has those little voids in it that, since it's not a human being, it can't just learn from it and not do that thing again. It will do that wrong thing over and over and over again because it's learning from us. And we do the wrong things over and over and over again. It's no less safe than a human being. It's exactly what a human being is, and all of our failings.
So it's going to be pretty difficult then to make something smarter than a human being if the human beings are making it.
If they're training it, right? It will be just a machine version of a human being with all of our failings.
Not any more intelligent.
So really, it is, let's make humankind better so that when we're emulated, they are better. So it's an uphill challenge. Impossible challenge, I should say. Joe, all of your decisions seem to be based on data. Do you think your thought process would be different if you didn't have data-driven background? It's a good question. If I had an emotional background, yeah, I'd be wrong on a lot. If I'd be wrong on a lot of stuff. But I have a curiosity to data. I want to know things, so I think I would still drive towards data, even if that wasn't my preference.
It's interesting to think of the idea of you would be wrong a lot.
Yes.
If somebody makes a decision based off of emotions, and maybe that decision does not come out to the benefit that you think it would have if data were considered.
Give me an example.
Oh gosh, let's see. Let's say somebody really likes a food. Let's say it's brownies, because brownies are amazing. I really love brownies. I really love them. They make me feel good. They make me happy. They make life worth living, to an extreme. I love them. I can't imagine my life without them. And you're like, well, let's look at the data. There's a lot of sugar, and sugar's bad for your body. There's a lot of calories. This could cause obesity. These could cause health problems. It's costing you money because you have to buy the ingredients to make them. So now you're financially strapped. You're also going to be financially strapped with going to the doctor if you eat too many because you've made yourself unhealthy. And data-driven, the risk far outweighs any benefit of having those brownies. It doesn't make sense. Don't eat them. And I say, I understand all that, but they make me so happy. I'm going to have them in moderation anyways. And I feel good about it. So are you wrong? Am I wrong? Or is it just there is no right or wrong? It's live with the data you're presented with, live with how it makes you feel. And that's the purpose.
Well, that example was all truth. So I would have no problem with any of that truth. It would be when you get to an emotional untruth where you say something that doesn't exist. So you listed the things you like. All of that's true. You listed all of the things downside. All of that is true. So the whole example that you gave, I wouldn't have a problem with. It's when people say I like brownies and I want to ignore the truths and the data that support whether or not I make the decision. If I lie to myself and say, I can just have one, and then the data shows that you cannot just have one, or you can't have it in moderation. So you should be kept from brownies because what you said is how you felt and not what you did.
How about, maybe this is a better example.
Okay.
How about a judge that takes pity on someone? Did they break a law? Maybe it's a minor law. Yes, they did. Why did you do that? I had just lost someone in my life. I was out of my mind. I was grieving. I was rushing. I wasn't thinking. I'm so distraught. And I ran through that red light. I blah, blah, blah. And the judge is like, all right, thank God no one was hurt. I'm going to throw this one out and I'm going to give you a mulligan, I guess. Wrong, but emotionally driven.
Would you not wrong. I think in our current state, the court system isn't what it should be. It should have a mission. Like, what is this for? It is to protect other people. It is for showing you that there's punishments for things that you do. And if you check the boxes where I'm looking at you and saying, I'm looking at my list and say, well, if I don't give you a punishment, does that mean that, I'm going to teach you from it? Am I going to insulate you from hurting other people from it? And if I can't say what the purpose of the court is, that you checked any of those boxes, then I would be free to, because honestly, I think there's some judgments that don't check any of those boxes. So people get punished and it doesn't really teach them. They weren't really a danger to other people, but yet they still get punished. So truth, if it's just truth.
So that is still an example. You say, yes, emotions can still give you a correct answer.
I would go the data route. I wouldn't have to have emotions to say if I didn't accomplish.
But data says, did you break a law? Yes.
Yes.
Are you now in court and I have to treat you as though you broke a law? Yes. But I sympathize with you.
Well, you don't have to sympathize. It's a data point. You having a bad day is a data point.
Yes. But wouldn't you look at it and say, well, what's the data? You break a law, here's a punishment.
If it was a
a
single dimension of data, then yes, you're right. There's not usually a binary deal, right? There's layers of data in consideration with one another.
Are you saying this decision would not be emotionally driven?
It would not be. I could make it into a non-emotional deal. I didn't do it because I felt bad for you. I did it because that was a data point that carried weight in the overall decision.
But that data point was emotional based.
It was still a data point.
It was, they were having a bad day.
Yeah. So like when I have a question on it and saying, give me the context of what was happening. Were you in an emotional state? Did you have a bad day? Is there a reason for it? And if your reason was that you just don't care, then that's a data point. If the reason was that you were having a bad day, that was a data point. I'm not going to give you a punishment or not give you a punishment based on the emotion, but it's taken into consideration with all other things.
Okay. So like we talked before about a real life instance that I was in one time where I got a ticket for speeding in a school zone. Mm-hmm. And I was very confused because I did not know I was in a school zone. And for anyone who doesn't know, if you get a ticket in a school zone, it's automatic court appearance, regardless of how fast you are going. So I went to the judge and I was saying how I was very respectful. I dressed nice. I presented myself well. And I said, I apologize. I was going 35 and the speed limit on that road is 35 unless it's during school hours, in which case it was 25. And I said, I still couldn't tell you where the school was. I don't recall passing a school. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. So to me, most school zones are done by 4:30. And I honestly did not know I was speeding. I thought I was going the speed limit. And she threw out the ticket, said, just pay court costs. Did you not say that was special treatment and that was emotional? And would that be an emotional decision or a data-driven decision?
So if I'm a judge, I don't want to warehouse people in jails. I don't want to, hit you because I'm a mean person, right? Yeah. I want to see if, again, you are a threat to public safety. So if I look through your record and you don't have a series of 20 times this is happening, I'm looking at it that you don't even live in the area. I can use all these data points to see how likely it was you were just
both of those
negligent
were true,
or you're just an idiot. You're going to be a danger no matter where you're at. And if you had no history, I can clearly see that you don't deserve the weight of the fullest extent of the punishment. Just by me saying, then I'm going to let this one go, but be safer. I've accomplished what the court's supposed to do, which is protect the public.
Do you have an example that would be emotionally driven?
What?
When you said
no, I said most of the time emotionally driven. If you stop at the emotional, you don't get to actual truth. And if you get to use emotion to fuel down to the truth, it's still logical and you still come out with the right answer. But most people don't go through the whole logical progression down to the actual truth. They stop what makes them feel good. And then you get wrong things happen on a regular basis.
Kind of like what we see when we talk about politics and voting for someone that you feel some kind of way about versus what makes sense, what their history is, what they've actually done.
You take more things into consideration, more depth, more dimension of data points until you arrive at a truth where you can't eliminate.
Yeah, kind of like if you're going to say someone's a Nazi and then you see multiple examples that would not make that true, but you still say, but I think they are, well, now you're emotionally leading this feeling.
If that's where it ends, because you got both sides of your brain, right? So emotional fuels the logical side. You dig through it. Now, if you're just engaging the emotional side, and when something makes you feel good, it's good, and when something makes you feel bad, it's bad. That's not truth, because there's a lot of things that are good that make you feel bad, right?
Yeah.
Krista says, I think it's emotional. There will always be bias thrown in there. Yes, if you do not progress through logic the entire way till you have eliminated everything else, then it is emotional.
So, okay, let's take another controversial political topic.
Yeah.
Border crossing.
Yeah.
If someone were to say these people are fleeing a terrible situation and we should let them come in and provide safety for them, regardless of who they are or where they're coming from, would you say that's more emotionally
totally emotional
driven?
Yeah, because nobody wants that.
Nobody wants what?
Nobody wants to take someone. So you have a let's just say you have a cousin that has a drug problem and they're homeless, they're sleeping on the street. Okay. You love them. You really don't want them to have a drug habit and being psychotic. You're not going to move them into your living room. Or if you do, you're going to regret moving them into your living room.
Yeah.
So your emotional attachment, when it means you are going to pay the consequence for that person being in your living room, you have standards that say, I got to keep myself safe first. And then I'm not going to compromise my safety for the sake of another person. But if you can vote your drug using homeless cousin into somebody else's house, now you feel a little bit differently because you have no consequences to pay. Make it someone else's problem. And then you're like, it's all emotion. And I'm driven by my empathy or my sympathy for the person that's in a struggle.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to house the people when it's their price to pay.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh, how terrible that we're going to kick out these people that need help. Okay. Well, when you see all the examples of bad things that happened because of allowing them to come over, and you decide to ignore that just to say, oh, we need to help these poor people, I feel bad for them, you're now on emotion. You're not thinking logically.
Yeah. So if your cousin's in your living room and they're lying to you, they're stealing your stuff, they're still using drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you would come, even if you initially wanted to help them because they were your cousin, would you kick them out if they misbehaved?
Yeah, if I didn't feel safe in my own home.
What they owe to you is complying with your rules. Now, if they didn't steal and they didn't lie and they washed the dishes and they were a perfect contributor to your society, didn't cost you anything, they could probably stay indefinitely. And so when you logically roll down, what would it be if you took a person that was fleeing their deal, right? And they were in really bad shape. Should they have to then conform to your rules so that they can stay situated in that environment and be a contributor? So that's when you roll it down. They're the ones that are being kicked out or the ones that are not being invited. Don't check all of those boxes so that linearly they wouldn't be invited.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can't think of one thing that I can't dissect in a logical mode. You can't, because that's
why I said, can you think of an example?
There isn't anything
of emotion.
There isn't
leading.
Anything.
I mean, I feel like there's lots of examples of emotions leading something, but you're saying it would have to be completely disregarding any and all logical thinking.
Truth. Logic equals truth. When you want to dig for a mathematical answer, you want to arrive at a yes, no, or whatever the answer is. And if you stop at emotion and don't go through the logical progressions, you don't get to a truth. In fact, you usually come with a lie that you tell yourself to justify an untruth.
Batman, fighting crime, vigilante, doing illegal things that he by law should not be doing. It's helping people. They want him to do it. Is it right or wrong to do it?
We'll just use vigilante justice.
Yeah, vigilante justice, right or wrong?
Wrong.
But do we sort of take people like Batman or Boondock Saints and say, oh, we need them, look the other way, they're good, even though what they're doing is wrong?
You wouldn't want to live in a society that supported people doing the wrong thing, breaking the rules. Rules are important to a society because if you permit them when they're in a department that you like, you're not going to like them one day in a department that you don't like.
If you found a group of pedophiles harming children, abusing them, being horrific, and somebody said, I'm going to go take them out, and maybe they did, would you agree with that decision, or would you say, don't do it, you can't do that, it's wrong?
You can't do that, it's wrong.
I mean, that's what I would say.
But it's an example of, like, even in the Batman thing. So is it somebody's job to take care of that stuff anyway? They better do a better job, because if you need a Batman, that means the people that are supposed to be doing it are incompetent and inept. So it's screaming that if you need your vigilante justice, then your society sucks and you got to get better at it.
Yeah. Jerry says, that's why I believe the build bridges, not walls, is complete emotional, especially when the people say that they have physical walls built. Build bridges, not walls. For the what, immigrants? We should be building bridges, not walls.
Mm-hmm. Again, your own house,
Yeah.
right? Why do you build a wall in the first place? To protect what's inside those walls.
Yeah.
If you said we did the data and we said that there are no people who want to attack you, then you don't need to build a wall. So if the people that are in charge of things don't deliver you any threat, then you don't have to build a wall. If they deliver you a threat, they can't convince you not to build a wall, right? Because if you don't and something bad happens, they're not fixing anything. So as long as you are responsible for your safety and a wall is necessary to keep you a marginally higher safety level than it was before, then walls are necessary. So you turn around and say, I don't want to have to build a wall. You better protect me and not do dumb things that put me in peril.
Yeah. Krista says emotions led Trump to pardon January 6 people who attacked the Capitol, but his Justice Department is prosecuting a harmless dude involved in hanging a banner, Adam Eidinger. How is that not emotional? I hate to get political here, but that seems super emotional to me. First of all, Krista, don't hate to get political.
No, we'll go there. We'll go there.
You are more than welcome. That's kind of what we do.
Yes.
But yes, okay. So what do you say about the pardoning?
Oh, it all is. Politics is 100% emotional. Don't you think every day that they're feeding you some kind of fear that nobody digs beyond the headline of what it is to find out what it is? I mean, half the stuff you believe to be true is probably wrong if all you do is listen to how it's being presented to you.
Yeah.
It's only most of us take some of the ones we care about and dig through it to find out what the real truth is. And through a logical progression, you get to a truth and then you get to situate. So if I just said, there's a pandemic and everybody needs to pump themselves full of this liquid in order to get by, right?
And stand 6 feet from the person in front of you.
Number one, I don't trust any of you because you all have casualties of, a line of casualties behind you. You will destroy people and you won't give two thoughts that they were just an unintended consequence of your idiocy. So if I follow you, I'm kind of on my own anyway. So I've got to dig through as much of the information I have to make a conclusion by. You can almost grant that anything you hear societally is all emotional. Very few things have.
Yeah. And I even sort of, because I distrust everything now, like, do you know who Adam Eidinger is hanging a banner? Maybe we need to see, like, when I hear things like that, pardoning people, prosecuting a harmless person, part of me is like, are we though? Are we? And we may be. I'm not saying that our country and our leaders don't do things that are completely unnecessary and ridiculous. They do. But because I now distrust everything, I'm like, was he harmless? What actually happened? Are they pardoning everyone? Is this somebody who should have been pardoned? Like, part of me is now like, if something, I have found more often than not that if something does seem totally outlandish, it's probably not true. But I don't know. I have to look into that.
Okay, so let's just replace all of government with AI. There's not a physical human being in all of government. All you have is a set of rules. You have the Constitution that's being interpreted by AI. You have laws. And so pardons happen automatically by opening pardon.exe and running the script, right? Mm-hmm. You would see the consistency of everybody being treated the same or with the same set of conditions. And then so you wouldn't have to wonder whether or not it was an emotional thing or not. They qualified because the AI followed the boxes, checked them off. And if it had a weight of 8, they go to jail. And if not, they were pardoned and whatever. But human beings, they try to manipulate the logic and the truth. And they try to do things where you could take two different people, right? And make the rule apply to that person and not make the rule apply to that person. So the rest of us see the inconsistencies and the hypocrisies. And that is what our government has become, just a collection of inconsistencies and hypocrisies.
Yeah, like what would the AI do if they're like, oh, person who was at the Capitol on January 6th, Hunter Biden, like, let's pardon them both. That makes sense.
Right.
Why does it make sense?
But it's easier to say, like, if we were to take traffic cameras or AI in cars, and it didn't take in consideration who was driving, and it just mailed the tickets out. So every time you were inebriated and drove, you got an OVI. Every time you sped, you got a speeding ticket. It would uniformly apply the rules to everyone. If we like that, it means that, that's what's happening anyway, right? To us. But there's some people who would really dislike that because they have a special pass and a special deal where they can do all the things that they hold you accountable for, but they're free from it and that doesn't apply to them. So it would shift government, and it wouldn't give them sort of an advantage over the people that they govern by having a different set of rules applied to them. I welcome AI into government any day of the week.
I recently saw a video of what's his name? People know him from the internet. He's a judge in Boston, older guy with glasses, real nice judge. Anywho, he was hearing a case of a woman who was getting a speeding ticket from a camera that was in an intersection. She ran a red light twice. And she says, "Oh, it was, I thought it was yellow. It was yellow. I went through it." And he's like, "Well, let's watch the footage again." And it's red, it's red, it's red, it's red, it's red, it's red, it's red. Like there was never a yellow. Well, then she said, "All right, the first time that was me, but the second time, that's my car, but that's not me. Someone was using my car. I wasn't driving it." And he's like, "Okay, so pay the first ticket, not the second one. I won't hold you accountable if that wasn't you." Would you think AI would be like, same car?
You figure it out.
Your ticket.
Your car, your responsibility. If you lend it to somebody, you have to know that don't lend your car to anybody because you become responsible for who's ever in that car.
Yeah. So in this case, like you're going to want the human being that you can talk to and rationalize with and make an emotional appeal to, right? Rather than.
Well, should it be fair that people who don't make an emotional appeal don't get the graces? So it's almost like the currency of not being able to break a rule or law is how good you are at crafting an emotional appeal. Should law be governed by how many tears you can generate on command? So if I go up there and say, I'm here to receive my punishment, and I get handed a punishment, and you go up there and saying, "But my daughter, my birthday," and we compare tickets on the other side, and the person that cried the most got less of a sentence than the person who just came there, accepted their fate, and whatever, because they didn't manipulate the judge into doing something less.
You just said explaining your bad day was a data point.
Could be taken into consideration as a data point.
So is it data? Is it emotion?
My question was, would you want somebody who's better at manipulating? And aren't we conditioned society just to manipulate? So do you think do you think that every judge hears every sob story that was imaginable as a rationalization? And then it means if you actually did have a bad day, the 40 other people that were just in front of them didn't all have a bad day. And so then we'd start connecting having a bad day with not following any of the rules. And then the whole system breaks down, because if you want to get away with it, make up a sob story. If you want the harshest punishment, say nothing and just accept your fate. Right?
Yeah.
Unglued.
Julie says, "I don't think emotions are inherently illogical. In fact, I think emotions are necessary
in fueling logical development. Emotion on their own, it should be the fuel of delving in. So if you get super pissed off about something, dig until you get to the truth, and don't bias it by wanting to come up with the answer. Find the actual truth, and then the emotion fueled the truth."
Yeah, because I think we do that a lot. When we sort of get it in our heads that we are going to feel a certain way about someone or something, and we want to maybe prove that we're right, we're going to dig to find things that prove we're right.
Exactly. Confirmation bias.
Yes.
For sure.
And to find information to the contrary, or almost like,
but that's where emotion takes you, because your emotion wants to be happy that you were right. And so it mutes out the stuff that would be contrary to how you believe. And so you arrive at non-truthful things. So use the fuel and then go into logical mood and find the truth.
I had something and I lost it. I had something in my head and I lost it. I don't remember what it was. I'm still wondering what this Adam what's-his-face did. I want to know if it was a harmless dude who hung a banner and got prosecuted, or if it wasn't. Maybe Julie knows too. Julie might know more about that. Julie or Krista, if you can tell us who this Adam guy is who hung a banner and I guess got prosecuted. Because that just doesn't sound legal. credible?
Arbitrary? Like, don't be shocked when someone could do something silly and get a sentence higher than someone who did something flagrant.
Yeah.
And that will happen because we're ruled by emotion in the court system instead of logic. You would expect, if it was logic, that you could sample two different people in two different places to do the same thing, and they get the exact same sentence handed out to them.
If your son got in some trouble, God forbid, and you talk to him and you're like, yep. He's like, Dad, I did this thing. It was dumb, but I did it. And he had to go to court. Would you hope that the judge maybe was like, hey, good kid, never been in a situation like this, made one mistake, maybe show a little mercy here, maybe don't throw the book at him. This was a one-time thing. Would you feel any way to have sort of that gut reaction of an emotional appeal? Or do you think you would
I
be
think
like,
whatever would be fair, whatever would be just, I would want it to apply to him, because it would, if it was formulated in a way that was intended to keep him safe, teach a lesson, know that actions have consequences, I'd want him to feel whatever was due to him. I wouldn't hope that somehow he can skirt from the justice, because that means we live in a society that other people are skirting the justice as well.
well, you would have emotions about it.
I'm not saying I'm void of emotions. I'm saying they don't regulate my decision making. If your decision making is from emotion, then you're going to come out wrong most of the time.
Yeah, I can see that. Krista said, according to charging documents, a longtime activist named Adam Eidinger was among a group that went to the front steps of the National Archives on January 10th, climbed ladders to the top of its Corinthian columns, and raised a 40-foot banner urging then President Joe Biden to recognize the Equal Rights Amendment. Okay, so here's where I question. This isn't just an innocent, harmless person that hung a banner. Was he on private property? Was it against the law to be there? If he's climbed to the top of a ladder to hang something, was it like, does this not sound like there are a lot of things there that I'm like, was it just he got prosecuted for no reason? Or was it like, hey, here's our keep off private property sign. You're now on it and we're going to press charges. Like, doesn't it feel like there's something more there?
I usually check out of stuff like this because you ever hear somebody's account for like why they got pulled over or why they got searched or whatever, and they say, I was just driving along minding my own business, right? And then you watch the body cam and you watch everything they did and they're like, oh, no, you weren't.
Yes.
No, you weren't.
Yes.
So this sounds like that headline emotional deal, right? And there's a lot of things that could be taken into consideration that say, yeah, that was reasonable for you to get it and not. So you're missing data
they're like,
points.
this cop used excessive force for no reason. I was just doing this. And then you watch them like smart mouthing off, being disrespectful, not following
going for their gun. And so to
like,
you, you felt like you didn't do anything, but to the, objective observer, you did everything wrong. And there's more to, you might have just laid a ladder and hung a banner. And then when they quoted the article, that was all you were doing. What you did before that, during that, after that, all the context that goes along with that, I might feel differently. And again, I stay clear of those kind of headline type of things that are meant to incite me and get me angry about something, because I know in my soul that there's more to it than the headline shared with me.
Yeah, Krista says, they both trespass. What did January 6 people do? Did January 6 people trespass? Because is it a private thing that they can't go to? Why did I hear somewhere that they were invited in? Or is that
okay? So there were hordes of people that were outside.
Yeah.
Right. And they had barriers. And again, I'm going to put my conspiracy theory, because this is how I think things went down. It would be very advantageous for a melee and stuff to go down. Right. And so if there was a horde of people, let's just say Black Friday sale, and there's barriers to keep people from entering the store. And then somebody's looking around saying, hey, I want this shit to go down. And they move one of the barriers. You're supposed to stay back there, but now there's no barrier keeping you from there. Do you think there's some people in the Black Friday sale that are going to push up against the doors and try to get in if they can? Most people, when you tell them, they'll respect it. But if you remove the physical barriers and open the door, right, and put a welcome sign up, there are people that are going to take the bait and go into the Capitol. And they, the Democrats really wanted shit to go down. They really didn't want Trump to survive this. And so I think they made it super easy for any of the bad elements that were in there to make their way. So they probably said, no, don't go any further. No, please don't. Like Willy Wonka in there.
No, stop, wait.
Exactly.
And I don't want to, even for a second, sound like it's okay. The people that went in there and they damaged property and they hurt people, it's not, I don't care if they rolled out the red carpet and said, come on in, we'd love to have you. That behavior is not okay once you get in there. But I have also, having said that, I have heard of people claiming that they were offered water. They said, come on in. You guys can look around. You know, if this is sort of a peaceful protest, you're welcome kind of thing. And then you have people that amped it up, which is why I'm like, but was it trespassing, or was it just you were allowed to be there and then a few of you got out of hand and acted like a-holes?
It would be incredibly easy to prove this if you had government officials that could share the data on how it really went down. So if I'm at the store on Black Friday and I remove the barriers and I say, stop, don't go anywhere, we're going to remove this for now, whatever. And people do, they were clearly given instructions of what not to do. Right. But if they were like, hey, I'm removing this barrier and feel free to walk around the Capitol, now it's no longer trespassing because an authority figure told you that it was, good to go down. And it'd be easy to prove if we wanted to actually prove it instead of it being in the specter of, unknowns.
Yeah. A good friend of mine knows someone, and I don't know him, so I don't know his situation, but supposedly he's local and he is fighting this legal battle because he's like, I'm facing all this legal stuff and I didn't do anything. He's like, was I there on January 6th? Yes. Was I invited? Yes. They let us in. They gave us water. They did this, and that. I didn't damage anything. And now I'm in legal trouble.
Exactly.
So if somebody in that instance was being pardoned, I could see that. Now, if he's pardoning the ones that went in there and punched people and assaulted people and hurt them and raided and caused damage to property, then absolutely that's wrong. And that's going to look some kind of way. Julie says you can't get into the Capitol without authorization.
Again, like, I don't know any more than you do.
So were they authorized to go in?
That's right. So if they were let in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know any more than you. It's very likely that there was just like in any protest, you have people who will be advantaged if it goes south or if it doesn't. And if those people made something happen, right? Yeah.
And another reason I don't trust it is because I know, and we all know, that there are, in fact, NGOs or NGOs, people who are hired for the sole purpose of causing a scene and having a rally and protesting.
Yes.
To push an agenda.
Right.
So it's like, we're all supposed to believe that January 6th was just a bunch of jerks that went there to cause problems and they should all be put in jail, when we know it's a fact, it's a thing. Our government hires people to go and cause a scene and cause damage and push an agenda. So why is that not an example of one, but something else is?
That's exactly right. And, there's not enough data points to know whether or not, and I'm sure if I were to guess, just being reasonable, both things occurred. There were bad people that did stuff and they need to be punished. And there were good people that got caught in that melee because they were participating. And that's it.
Yeah. Krista says, you made your point, Joe. There is emotional bias in politics. If someone who broke a window at the Capitol, who also has other criminal history, is pardoned and this other guy is prosecuted, it's going to change the way juries look at this stuff.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. And I think too, like, it's that inconsistency that can
Now, are you comfortable being in a legal system that has gray areas, that you might get caught in the gray area just because you couldn't produce the emotional appeal that was necessary to get an easier sentence? Don't feel comfortable at all.
No.
You want it to be very binary. You want it to be fair, even, right? And have no emotional impact.
Yeah. I mean, like, if I got pulled over by someone, I feel like you hear often, oh, you're a girl, they're going to let you go. What if it's a biased person that's like, women can't drive? What if they're like a big misogynist? And it's like, hey, I want you to consider everything I actually did and everything that is my history and make a decision. not just off of emotion because you don't like women, like, so.
Well, wouldn't that be the same manipulation as the manipulating lawbreaker trying to skew the results based on some of their biases? Their biases, they don't want to get a ticket.
Yeah.
And the cop is, I hate women and I want to give you a ticket. It's the same thing. So you don't get like an overruling where who's going to emotion the most. It's I don't want a cop to have any say in whether or not something. I want it to be binary so that his biases don't enter into whether a ticket's given. And I don't want the driver to be able to talk their way out of something when a ticket should be given.
Yeah.
You're that's what I'm saying. Like it will be exploited because that's human nature.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, well, the emotions worked for me in one case, but against me in another. And so you got to have it fair then.
100%. And there's consequences of making it binary, but the consequences are far less than the emotional side where you're not dealing with truth anymore. You're dealing with who can be the most dramatic, who can have the biggest sob story, and who can sway and manipulate the judge or the officer or whatever.
Because that's where we see where we use this emotion as a tactic. We've talked about political parties doing this. To say that you don't think something is right and you give all these logical reasons for it, and then you're called a bad person because how could you not empathize with somebody? And it's like, what? I'm not a bad person. I just gave you like 5 reasons why it makes no sense to go this route. Well, but we got to go that route because you're bad if we don't. It's a bad thing to do. And you're just like, no. And that I think is the biggest pushback, is the biggest reason we fight about politics, is the emotions involved.
100%.
And both sides, everybody wants to say, oh, you can't get emotional, and so-and-so's being emotional, and that side's being emotional, and we actually are thinking logically. No, we're thinking logically. No, both sides do it. Nobody does it. Because that is their game, is to push the emotions, for sure.
I don't like this world at all. I want it to be logical. I want other people to conform and give way to logically minded people because we deal in truth, not fabrication.
But again, if the solution is AI, but you said the AI is made by the problem, how do we reach the solution?
Well, checking the boxes is what it is. If it does not satisfy the boxes, right? You can't emotionally convince AI that the box is checked when it really isn't. Did you do this? Yes or no? Right? And you can take emotional data points and have considerations in there, right? In the same way that a human being would, but they're not going to say, oh, you're a judge. You did all these things, but you're a judge, gone. Because the boxes are still checked. You can't talk your way out of the boxes being checked.
But an emotional data point is still going to require the emotion. Like if I say, oh yeah, I wasn't thinking, my dog just died. And you have had dogs and you've had a dog die and you know how that feels. You will think differently than a robot that's like, dog died, not enough weight. Maybe grandparent died, a little more weight. Maybe, like it's going to have to know of a logical weight to put on there. But again,
dimensional is answering a single question. Like if I said why you did it and it carried one data point in a series of 10, right? And I'm trying to establish I have 5 things on the why you did it. Either you're a crazy person, you had malice in your heart, having a bad day. Then on one of those data points, I satisfied it where I came to the conclusion that you didn't do this because you were mad at somebody. You did this because you were having a bad day. Now that's going to not say guilty or not. That's just one box on a line when I'm trying to establish what your motive was in this moment.
But don't you think the emotional appeal could weigh it more? If the AI found 10 reasons why you're guilty, but one of them for you personally would carry a lot of weight. Like, I get it. I get they did this. This was wrong. They shouldn't have done this. They shouldn't have done this. But, oh, man, it's because their dog died, and I know how that feels. That carries a lot more weight than 10 other reasons. Would AI be like, no, 10 versus 1, 10 wins?
Absolutely. Because you wouldn't be able to check those other boxes if there weren't a lot of other context. So let's just use the flag guy, right? Okay. So there's 10 reasons. He was making a political statement. He trespassed on property. He defaced it and ruined some property. He was intoxicated. He was carrying a weapon.
Maybe he stole the ladder.
Okay, so if you were able to check all of these boxes, if it were just a guy walking down the street and he went up and he didn't check any of those boxes, he just hung a banner, right? The AI would be like, well, no, this was just a dude that made a little mistake and he gets a slap on the wrist. But if you take all of those things and put in there, they all together carried the weight that this was not just a guy hanging a political banner. There was much more to it. It gives more definition, more resolution into what happened here and why he was penalized so harshly. When another dude, a block down the street, went up to a fence and paper clipped a sign on it, didn't have a gun, didn't hurt anybody, didn't damage any property, has never done anything like this before. He only got to check one of those boxes and they get even a lighter sentence because he didn't do any of the things the other dude did.
I really want to Google this dude and see what he did. What was the banner?
I have no idea.
Can we Google it? We Googled everything else today. We're going to find out.
What was his name?
Adam Eidinger. Adam.
What was it?
Eidinger. He's a cannabis rights activist.
Okay.
And a businessman. Organizer of joint giveaway. Progressive activist. Charges dropped against marijuana activists who gave out something. Is that him?
That was from 7 years ago, so that can't be right.
He gave out joints in front of the Capitol. What was that? Pushed. Scroll down. Pushed. Oh, never mind. Ballot initiative legalized.
Well, anyway, it'll take too long to dig into it, but I'm assuming
maybe
there was
he was
more
on drugs, which were not legal at the time.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like there's missing data from it, so you can't even fairly, decide unless you know more about it.
But here's that appeal too that we talk about in the media, and I'm not saying Krista is in any way wrong, but I'm going to use her as an example and pretend maybe like she's a media source. How she said the harmless dude got prosecuted for hanging a banner. When it could be, the maniac on drugs who stole a ladder and went on private property. Depending on who you hear it from, the story changes completely. So when you see two sources of information that have two totally different headlines, how do you know who to believe? And then once you get down to the nitty-gritty of the factual information, do you then strike off the other one as no longer credible?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I expect every headline to have no actual details or data that I would need to make a decision. So you ever notice, like, when a black teen does something, they leave race completely out of it, and it's framed as innocent college kid, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when it's a white dude that does it, like, they for sure put the race in there, right? It's a completely flipped script. So what information is that? They will frame, if they don't say it at all, and if they do say it, then
Yeah.
But that's just, like I said, I assume that every headline was meant to sway me in a certain way, give red meat to the people who want to read it, and to alienate and piss me off if not.
Yeah, and we saw this when Trump was meeting with Zelensky in that Oval Office thing. You saw headlines that were like, Trump berates Zelensky, yells at Zelensky in a tense meeting. Or it could be like, discussion about ceasefire, blah, 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 in Oval Office. And it's like, depending on whose side you're on.
That's exactly right. Emotionalized, non-data, and you can take all of those things and throw them in the wastebasket because they are void with the information you need to come to a decision.
I saw, this is sort of changing gears a little bit, but similar. I saw somebody share a post the other day on Facebook, and it showed transgender women, men who are transgendered to women. And it was this whole men in sports thing. And it shows their picture and it says, so you're saying we're too strong for sports, but too weak for the military. And I'm like, yes, yes. And they're saying that as though it's like hypocritical or bias or, we're so strong. We can't be in these sports, but we can't be in the military. And I'm like, precisely. And the fact you don't see that is ridiculous. What would you say about that?
Well, that headline is baiting you into it. So
Yeah.
the military is very choosy about who they put into it, so they can have skilled warriors that do a certain thing, and they can choose that if they don't want that, if it doesn't contribute to the force of the military, that they can exclude you.
Yeah.
So if a person has complications, no matter what they are, they probably will say no. So if my glasses meant that I couldn't be on a jet and pilot a jet, right?
Yeah.
I could see where what I was, even if I couldn't control it, made me a worse pilot than someone who did not have glasses. So I trust that the military is making a discerning reason why there's certain people that create complications within the military. So it's an unfair argument.
Yeah. I wanted to be like, first of all, if you think a sport is synonymous with military service, you're grossly misinformed. Second of all, yes, if you think you can change your body as a male and become the standard of female, what do you think's going to happen then in the military?
Here's a better analogy. Okay, so let's take the country of Girlistan, right?
Country of Girlistan.
All girls.
Okay.
Right? And they declare war on the United States, but they set one of the rules is that only girls can fight against them. Now the military, that transgender person would give a strict advantage, and they would be recruited in the military because they're participating against other women. So that would be a more one-for-one analogy. But if you are fighting, that we're not talking about a girl that is competing against, or a transgender woman that's competing against men, right? We're saying there's a athletic advantage in having a transgender person compete against women.
Yes. And to me, that's such a perfect example of where emotions are making you just wrong.
Right.
Like, look at the logics. Look at what go into sports, what goes into military.
You even said that. I'm going to get you a t-shirt. Look at the logics.
Look at the logics. What makes sense? Yeah. Like, how do people not see?
Because they're emotionally driven.
Yes. I was just going to say, how do they not see that is emotionally
How are you the
driven?
defender of emotionally driven things when you're complaining about emotionally driven things? Makes no logical sense.
Because I'm logical enough to not be so ridiculously blind to emotional appeal. And I think this is what happens when you go too far to one side. Like, we get accused all the time. Oh, you're MAGA Trumpsters, put your red hat on. And like days later, oh, you're dumb liberal snowflakes. Like, we can't be both. So we must be somewhere in the middle. And that's where I would like to be. That's a good thing. If you think that I am pointing out both sides, that's a compliment, because I think that's what should be done. But when you are so far to one side that you can't do that, that's where you should know, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here. I'm in deep. If you cannot see the other side and see anything, and I know we've talked to Julie about this, like, give us one thing that you think the right did that you agree with, or that you see the point of, or that you think might be a good idea, or anything. One. If you can't do one, or you can't at least explain, here's the thing too. You don't even have to agree with it or think it's good. I want you to explain to me their rationale. Explain to me what they're doing there. And it better not be they're just power hungry fascists. No, I need like a logical explanation of why they think that and what their game plan is. And if you can at least understand it and disagree with it, you'll have credit with me. But we don't do that at all.
We are not we're not in Truthville at all.
I mean, I can even see like, oh, why would the Dems want to bring hordes of illegal immigrants here? I could explain that.
There's a couple of points that you can add, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number one, let's name them.
Okay, let's start with emotions.
Okay.
Because they're fleeing for their lives and
That's
they're in
cover
danger.
fire. That's cover fire.
But they're going to say this.
Yeah, for sure.
They're going to say, we need to help people. We are America. We are a melting pot. We don't reject people. All backgrounds are welcome here. So let's welcome all backgrounds.
Okay. It's cover fire number
all
two.
Right, got your point. Now, if you want to go to maybe what the higher ups are doing, hey, if we bring them here and we give them a cushy life and we let them live off of us and we give them cell phones and we give them money, maybe they're going to want to vote for us then when we come up for re-election.
Okay,
We
good
buy
point.
their vote.
Good point.
That's about it.
So the Democrats really like social programs, and the more people you have dependent on them, the more likely they are to spread and get bigger and more top heavy. Right?
Yeah. If people are required to fill racial quotas in the workplace,
Sure.
they now have a larger pool to pick from.
Okay.
I could see that.
Yeah. All right. It was easy to do it. If
Yeah.
if an unbiased person can take any industry just like that and just sort through like who's benefiting from this, who has a reason to, just like we would do with a court system, we're taking things into account of why somebody would do something, holding weights on whether or not they're doing it for reasons that are suspicious or sus.
Yeah. I'm so proud of Julie. I give you this, RFK and Trump taking on pharma. Because
Thank you.
Because Julie is able to think logically and be like, all right, here's.
Did that pain you, Julie? Do you feel like you have Benedict Arnold your side when
I think Julie's rational enough that she can admit things. I think. I don't think she's too far left that she's irrational. She listens to us every day, so she's pretty smart.
That's exactly. She's one of my favorites. She really is.
Yeah, we tease, but she's good. Carter says Trump is killing it overseas, and it is driving the Dems crazy.
But can I point out this gamble?
Yeah.
This is another big gamble. The tariff thing was a gamble. The international is another huge gamble. You want me to add some more to this?
Yes.
All right. So we tend to put everything through the Americanized filter, right? And we project who we are on the people that we're dealing with. Much like we would go to a place and we would just assume that the cultures were the same and the language was the same and motives were the same. And sometimes you get a little shocked when somebody's playing a completely different game than you do. And the international diplomacy is a lot of people who are playing a much different game. We saw this in Qatar. We see this with Russia. We see this with China. And all of them have their interests first and foremost in all of their decision making. They are not going to just do something without, getting something in return. It powers everything in that dynamic. And so if you're playing nice with people who tomorrow would bomb the crap out of you if they wanted to, you're playing a dangerous game by warming up to those people. When I was first getting into politics, there were a lot of resistance to being able to take meetings with countries because then you give them a platform and you give them credibility because the president of the United States meeting with the prime minister of blah, blah, blah country, right? It almost puts them on an even keel. So in the power dynamics, if nobody would even meet with you, that means you're below reproach. Like you are way down on the totem pole. So with him bringing these relationships, these are almost like you would fear for someone who was so totally naive going out in the dating scene and putting themselves out there and attracting all of this attention to them. There are bad elements that are going to try to warm up to you, and they're going to use what they know about you against you. And if you don't think, if they're like, hey, there's this ego guy that will give me anything I want. If I play into his ego a little bit, I'm going to lavish him with things. And if you don't step back and say, this is a setup, like I'm walking straight into something. And not only is my country going to be in peril if I make a dumb mistake here, but it's also going to put lives in jeopardy if something happens because of this whole dance that I did. So it would, if he said, I'm taking a meeting with North Korea, right? A little like handshake and a drink, I don't fear so much, but then like getting stuff moving in a direction with North Korea, there's some really smart people that are highly respected that didn't want to touch North Korea because what that could mean in unsettling everything in the international community. He's playing with fire, dancing with a lot of these people. There's a lot of friends that are a lot like Qatar that will slash our throat if need be.
So do you think that they're sort of like, let's be friendly and give us a false sense of security?
But no, it's more dynamic. These players are very good about power dynamics. So the meeting is, that's like the warm up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's funny when you say, we sort of want to put our own biases and ways that we do things onto
Projecting,
others.
yes.
I have often had this thought, and I hate it. I hate it because I feel like I so badly would want to support the idea of one day having a female president. But I can't help but think, what is that going to do with negotiations and relationships of countries that do not respect women in power? And it's not just American, it's that's not how they see women. They don't treat women the way we do. They don't have the rights that we do. That is their norm. So for us as America to send a woman to negotiate with these people, like, that's going to be a huge barrier just because she's a woman. And so part of me is like, oh gosh, like, yeah, I'd love to say, oh, we have the first female president and have this really strong candidate and represent, but it's like, can we though? Can we, based off of how other countries are run? I fear that a lot.
Yeah, and that is projecting out that we want those countries to conform and be accepting of women.
Yeah.
And judge them, but they're all different. They play a different game, and they're not that. So if you were going to elect somebody that would be capable, right, then you would say, who do I put in front of these negotiations that would be capable versus who I want to put up there, even if they're incapable.
Yeah. I mean, if you see our president as somebody that you don't like, maybe you don't like their personality or how they do things, but they mesh well with other leaders, are you willing to overlook that you don't like it, but it works well with the other business he's conducting? You know, one of the things I remember asking somebody when we were still in the middle of the election is I asked a family member, I said, do you honestly feel safe with Kamala Harris as our leader in negotiations with these other countries? You honestly feel like that's the best person to be in that hot seat and you feel safe? I didn't. I didn't. And it almost doesn't even matter. Well, it does. There are probably other women, maybe I would, but not her. But
I honestly think that we could have maneuvered around that. Okay. Because if you know that there's a country, you send your envoy with the people who are good at that. It doesn't have to be the president personally, right? It could almost be like a token position, like the Queen of England, right? Parliament does everything. They're just the example of the royalty. They don't really make any decisions.
Like a figurehead.
It's exactly right. So if we sort of like concocted it so that the best negotiators did the bidding, and then the people who were negotiating with weren't attributing the negotiation back to the president, no matter who they are, right?
So you could sort of have that option then if they're like, well, I'll talk to you, but not her.
You wouldn't have her talking if it wasn't going to give you an advantage or it was going to give you a distinct disadvantage. You wouldn't do that.
It would be interesting to see. Like, doesn't Mexico currently have their first female president? It'd be interesting to see, like, if she. I know they're viewed a little differently than the States, but it'd be interesting to see the kind of pushback that the female leaders get. I don't know, just curiosity. Jeff says, so Trump should do nothing like Biden did for 4 years. Trump has thought this all through, guaranteed. I mean, that's my biggest thing.
Well, he's using that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to say, things he does is risky, but is that better than nothing?
And that's the thing. Like, so, my mistrust means that he probably is really a really adaptable person. And the people that are around him are more strategic. And so like when he does the tariffs thing, it's going to work out in the end because his skill set is doing the thing that's impulsive, but then making good on it in the end. So what I would see is something that is very dangerous to do, like implement these tariffs that in a couple of months, diffuse back down to exactly where we wanted to be. I'm like, I wouldn't have done that because I'm not as good as doing the risky thing where the dangers are a high probability only to adapt down to it, to get my way in the end. So he's using his strength where the countries, how they feel about Trump is they know he's a loose cannon. And so the power dynamics are that they're not going to mess with him like they would with a Joe Biden, because what they know impulsively he will do in 2 seconds. So there's a little fear element to it.
Mm.
And bringing him in and roping him as a friend means that you increase your advantage so that you know he won't impulsively clock you in the face, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm okay with that portion of it. But there, on the other side, there's more to it. The dynamics of what they have in mind is what I fear, and they won't take a meeting, like I said, unless their national interests are get an advantage out of the deal. If it's just so they don't get clocked by Trump, all right, that's understandable. But there's some dangers on the other side of that.
And you think when Biden was in power, you think we were probably looked more as pushovers, or he was a pushover?
He was just a status quo president. So whatever was there was there. There was no reason to really talk. He didn't carry much weight because he was such a corrupt politician. The stuff, if he's skimming money off the top of Ukraine giveaways or whatever, let's talk about enriching ourselves. But he was your typical status quo corrupted politician.
You think maybe they would almost see him as like he'll work with us.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll
I know what to say. If there's something in it for them, we could probably get away with something. And he was complicit more than anything.
Yeah.
Where I don't feel like Trump can be bought. And,
is Trump more like one of those like police officers you get pulled over by that's on like this complex of like, I'm gonna bust somebody? Like technically you're on the side of the law, but you also kind of come with an arrogance
with that bluster.
It.
Yeah, and that's intimidating, and it works for most of those people. They won't cross you because their ego will take you into territory that you do not want to be in. So it's sort of using his worst element about his personality as his strength.
Yeah.
So as long as it stays there, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Carter says Trump wakes up every day and at least tries to make the country and the world a better place.
Yeah, if you take his motive, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think he wants to be president or wanted to be president?
Why do I personally think?
Yeah, number one reason, if you said Trump, and you could talk to his subconscious and answer the question of why did you want to be president? I'll give you reasons and you tell me yay or nay. Okay. That he needed to make more money.
No.
That he loved his country.
Maybe. Yeah.
That it was the pinnacle, the best possible position in government that anybody really achieves.
Yes.
Major power benefits that come with it.
Yes.
You get your name mentioned on TV every other minute.
Yes.
All right. I've given you 5.
Yeah.
So do I think he loves his country? I think it's I think he does. I think he's pro-America.
Yeah.
But the biggest one is the attention it draws him. And he's one of those exceptionalism seekers. So if he's going to have a building, it's going to be the biggest. If he's going to have this, it's going to be the biggest. So that grandeur, you want to be attached to that train because whatever he does is going to be big.
Yeah. I mean, and we saw this like when he didn't take the presidential salary. Remember, he was like not collecting money for being the president. He was, wealthy on his own. He didn't need it. So that sort of speaks to, this really is important to him. He's not doing it for the money. He doesn't have to be here. To me, I see Trump as someone who thinks highly of his abilities. He's like, I am a good business person. I am a good decision maker. I get things done. I close the deal. And I bet you I could do it on the largest scale in the world.
There you go.
And that's not a bad thing, to say I am so confident in my abilities that I want to take this to the big leagues and do it on the biggest world stage I can. Okay, as long as you do it. I don't care. I don't care if you're led by ego, if you truly do make things work. You could have someone that's like, I care about my country and I want to help the country and I want to do what's right and I want to make the world a better place, but you're ineffective. Then you're not the best person for the job, regardless of where your priorities are to yourself.
Now, what do you think was the biggest shooting of the foot that Trump has done so far? What do you think the biggest, thought
you were going to say shooting of the ear?
No. What do you think the biggest misstep or the thing that you cringe when you even think about?
I cringe when I think about like something he does.
Or did. Could it be a single action? Could it be just about who he is?
I cringe when I have to hear him speak. And it's not because of any point. It's not because of the point or the thing he's trying to get across. It's because of the little jabs. Best in the world was very bad. These little side sentences and he can't stop bashing Biden long enough to finish his point. Like, we get it. Biden's gone. You're in power. Let's move on. Because this last administration was just so bad. They did that. We all know that. Keep talking. Like, to me, and this could just be because, like, maybe it's that 7-second mentality that social media is giving us. I feel like he takes something that he could say in 5 minutes and drags it out to 20 minutes just to sort of keep taking these little digs and driving us home and blah, 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 and his little side comments to himself. And I'm like, can you please just write out what you're going to say and read it so that we can move on? So I cringe when he speaks because of the little personality digs he has that I think are unnecessary. Even if what he's saying is a good thing, even if like what he's doing is a good thing, I just wish he would say it more succinctly.
So if you took a politician, would you trade his effectiveness for being more eloquent when he speaks?
I would rather have effectiveness.
Okay. So you're willing to tolerate all of that crap.
I'd be like, all right, Trump's talking. Try to pay attention and focus when he's got the the things that he does this, and it's very bad. It was very bad. A lot of
dumb people.
Yeah,
a lot of dumb
I'm just
people.
like, just move on with your point. But I will suffer through that to get the effectiveness. Yes.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. One misstep was the meme coin. I freaking hate that they did this to lead off the campaign. Trump coin. You heard about it?
So I've heard some of this, but I don't fully understand what this was.
So before the election, they did the Hawk Tuah coin, right?
Yeah.
They created a meme coin and sold a ton of these. And what happened to Hawk Tuah is it's usually a pump and dump. You have these really meme coin things. They generate a lot of money on the short term. A bunch of people get paid off, and then it just goes down just because it's a stupid cryptocurrency. And in this case, like, I have known more of these meme coins that were headlined as, the most scammy, sleazy things on the planet. And to start off your campaign and your presidential term with a freaking meme coin, that's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And it did nothing. Like, there's no upside to it. They're claiming that they wanted to use this as a sort of a leverage point in a teaching moment for the government to get more active in cryptocurrency. So an example's sake. And I think that's total BS. Like, it had nothing to do with the nation. Anybody who knows anything about cryptocurrency already knows whether or not we should be involved in it. So this isn't going to sway someone's vote because there's a Trump coin. I think it was more like somebody came up to him that he trusted in the last couple of minutes and say, hey, we got a lot of activity. A bunch of people will throw money into this thing, and it'll be real successful, and they'll be talking about you being the cryptocurrency president. It was like, I like that idea. That'll be the biggest coin ever.
Yeah.
Right? Dumb move, because there's no upside and all downside.
I feel like sometimes Trump, so I think some of the big advantageous things he wants to get done can take time. It's not quick. It's not a quick fix. It's something that is going to take time to accomplish. But I think Trump has this sense of, I need to show that things are getting done quickly. I need to basically increase the number of things I did, the quantity over the quality, because the quality ones aren't quick. They take time, but I need to look like a lot is happening. That's the sense I get, which is why I think we keep getting these things like renaming the Gulf of Mexico and renaming Veterans Day and sign an executive order to have National Irish Heritage Day. And it was an executive order to have National Women's Day and all these like executive orders for these days. And like, let's maybe the coin and let's do all these things that to me are just so filler feeling to me. Like, is this just filler? And I think people that don't like Trump use these things as digs at him, like, oh, because he's just power hungry. He's power hungry. He's trying to take over everything. I don't necessarily think it's a power hungry or it's a desire to take over or be like all powerful. I think it's, what can I get done to look like I'm doing a lot of things to appease my voters while these bigger things are taking time.
Second, I agree with that. But second is, if you know the media is going to attack relentlessly anything you do, you have to have bait out there so it takes their attention. And the more outlandish it is, the more they'll be talking about that one. And then those ones that take a little longer, maybe they still get fire, right?
Yeah.
But they don't get focused fire where they're the only thing that you're doing. And so they dismantle it through public opinion.
Like the more I hear the media talk about Trump being ridiculous for wanting to make Canada a part of the states, I'm just like, why don't you guys just feed right into him? Like,
they can't help it. They cannot help it.
Yeah. Like, do you know what would go into that? You know that Canada's probably not loving us right now. It's just a ridiculous thought and idea. And the longer you spend on that, just shows that you are the toddler he threw the goldfish down for so he could go get work done.
You got tempted. You took the bait. And I feel more sorry for you than I do for him, because he probably did it on purpose.
Yeah. And the same thing. I mean, when you hear like people that oppose him and all the things they're opposing are those same sort of insignificant talking points. Well, I can't believe he would want to do this. He doesn't. It's stupid filler.
They probably have a whiteboard of the next 20 things that they're going to throw out there just when the other one gets stopped talking about. They're like, here's a silly one. They're going to take the bait. And now we're going to have time to work on the other stuff for sure.
Yep. Julie says, Trump on April 28th, I run the country and the world.
On purpose.
Yes.
Totally on purpose.
Yes.
Because they know that somebody's going to say, he thinks he's a monarch now. And so he gets the attention that he's after. He gets to then distract the media from knowing exactly what they're going to say. And everything they say is not going to damage him.
I saw him on a podcast once. I think it might have been the Flagrant podcast or one of those, and all you have to do is listen to Trump in a setting that is not mainstream media, and you see exactly that he does that to get a rise out of the Julies, out of the no offense, Julie, but I'm just using your name in this instance.
And Carter says he plays the Dems every day.
Yes. Julie says he believes himself.
That's emotional.
Yes, because anybody who pushes back on Trump is going to be like, he wants all powerful. He wants to be this dictator. And you go see Trump in any other interview and he's just like, I just say dumb shit because
I feel like
they're so ridiculous. Yeah. Like, you're going to take anything I say and do and turn it around to be a bad thing. You're going to accuse me of saying something I didn't say. You're going to accuse me of meaning something that I didn't mean. You're going to take my words out of context. You're going to push your own agenda to paint me into a light. Okay. I'm the ruler of the world. You know, like he even said, he talked about a word salad. He goes, I love doing word salads. I love it. When somebody asks me a question and I just keep talking and I go roundabout and I just keep them talking and then I blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden he's on a completely different topic. He's like, that's a word salad. I love doing that because why not? Why not? They're going to hate me regardless. And I'm like, I get it. You don't have to like them, but I get it.
You think Republicans are going to be mad that we're giving the strategy away so that they'll wise up to it and maybe not take the bait?
Anybody can hear the strategy if they actually listen to them, but they don't. They listen to what the other side has to say about them. And it does go both ways. I'm not, I sound like I'm defending the right and Trump because at this moment I am. But if a Democrat's in office, it's not like the conservative media is not going to do the same thing.
For sure.
It's like all you do is listen to the talking heads on your own side to get information. But if you go and you listen to what that side is actually saying and you get a whole different view, now it comes down to who do you trust? And it would take someone like Julie to hear Trump say something like, if Trump came out and said, I don't really want to take over the world. I'm joking when I talk about Canada being a part of the states. I'm joking when I say this, but I'm just saying it because the media is a jerk and I'm trying to get back to work. Then what that requires is you to then believe him. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to believe that when somebody says, hey, Trump actually isn't this way. This is a media narrative. This was a lie. Do you believe them or do you believe what the media says? So that I think is where things get hairy too, is who do you believe? And if you really feel strongly about someone and you don't want to be wrong, you're not going to believe the truth when you hear the truth.
Dems are wrong a lot. That is one thing that, you know, when you have authority, and you are more often wrong, and there's never like humility in it where, hey, you know what, we got a little overzealous and we wanted that to be true, but it's not really true.
Yeah.
They go the other way, where if you had a bill that that I was afraid you were going to make a cut in something special, and so I went out there and say, Trump's going to cut this thing. And then the bill comes out and they're not really cutting that thing. They will still get behind a podium and insist it's going to be cut, even though they just looked at it and see that it's not going to be cut. And they will stick to the narrative that got people fired up in spite of it not even being true. They're delusional.
Yeah. I like Julie says, should a president be baiting the world? I would rather a president bait the world to get them off his back so he can work than to constantly be fighting the false information and he can't get anything done.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like when I asked her, would you prefer the eloquence where you're respected for not being able to get anything done, or do you want it to be brash and to be something that you have to plug your nose in to get something done? It's two flavors.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. You were talking about, you think Obama was a terrible president.
Yes.
I don't honestly know a whole lot about Obama. I know I liked his personality.
He was a great speaker.
He was a great speaker. He presented himself well. He seemed like a guy, hey, let's go get a beer with this guy. I'd love to hang out with him. So if you can say that about someone, but they were ineffective as far as changing the country or doing what needs done, then yeah, I'll take a president who baits the world all day long. Yeah. If it allows him to get something done.
Yeah. And I think most people, especially in academia, want the posturing is more important, right, than the substance. And so I'll give it to you. Biden would have been able to posture. Well, not in his
not anymore. Maybe
he would have been. He was able to posture himself in better light, even if he was ineffective. And if you like that flavor, you get to vote for that flavor and enjoy it. I would prefer, as screwed up as things are, people get stuff done, even if it's done messy.
Yep. I can't wait every day to see that he is going to say to set the Dems' hair on fire. It's always going to be
something. You have an infinite supply of those things for sure.
Oh yeah. And Carter says, Obama do nothing 8 years. Maybe that's why I don't know a whole lot about him. Did he just do nothing?
He messed some stuff up.
Yeah.
He got us in some agreements that we're still trying to claw our way out of. Yeah, he messed some stuff up.
Do you think, though, he takes credit? I mean, wasn't Obama in office when we killed Osama bin Laden?
Yeah.
Was that like a good like check mark on his record or something because of the timeline? Or,
yeah, he did.
That's kind of all I know about him.
Yeah.
And I only know that because my husband was overseas at the time. So I was following that. That's the only reason I know who was president at that time.
I'm not minimizing. He can be credited with a lot of good things that happen on the social end of the spectrum in American politics. He just did some really bonehead things on the outside of American politics that
more of like
great.
Social things.
No, more like diplomatic and where our positions were with who our enemies and friends were, and agreements that he got us roped into that had consequences to our economy. So he did some good stuff. Like I if I gave him a grade, he would be like a C. Biden would have been like a D, and Trump is like a B. An A would be well-spoken, high levels of integrity, and unity and whatever. It's almost like the unicorn of politics. So I don't ever expect there to be an A.
And you know who I think would have been the closest to an A?
Who?
RFK Jr. And I know that's going to get pushed back, and I'm not saying he's an A+, but I feel like we would have been closer to an A respectable person that would have remained respectable and respectful when addressing, when talking about things, willing to listen, willing to work with both parties, came from one, went to another. I can trust. He even said recently, hey, I think when we kind of came out here gangbuster and made a whole bunch of cuts, we overdid it. And we're going to start hiring some people back. I like that he could say that yes, some things needed to go. But I think maybe some that went didn't need to, and we're going to bring it back.
I would need to see him in the position to even give him a grade, but I don't think he's an A. I don't.
Why not?
There's some, historically, he's part of a family that has some integrity issues.
Family.
Doesn't matter. His
family does not support him, which to me, people want to use that as a red flag. And I'm like, you tell me in one breath that the Kennedys were corrupt, and then you say the Kennedys don't support him. Listen, that's a good thing.
Listen, I will not give an A out easily, and I don't think he's one. I would need data. So I'm making a snap judgment, but he probably would not be one. I'm not saying
he is an A. I'm saying probably the closest to an A of anyone I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah. Julie says, I believe in actions. Obama got us out of the recession. The ACA, consumer protection, got troops out of Iraq.
The ACA
he got troops out of Iraq?
Cluster. We're going to be paying for the ACA forever. It jacked things up so.
What's the ACA?
Affordable Care Act, Obamacare.
Oh.
So bad. Like, so bad.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that. There was a time when it was illegal to not have health insurance and everybody at least had Obamacare. Mm-hmm. That's not a thing anymore, I'm guessing. You don't have to have.
I don't know how things have changed, but the whole, in theory, it could have worked. In practice, it was a cluster. Total cluster.
So good idea, bad.
Yeah, and had repercussions that have costed us in healthcare dollars since then, like doubling of premiums. Like it was a cluster. There were some people that got covered that were uncoverable before. So if all you take into consideration was some, the poorer part of the spectrum, there were some people that were helped because of it, no doubt. But as far as jacking all the system up for the sake of covering poor people, you could have done that separately outside a system instead of making the machine break. And it
kind of like when we were in COVID and Biden gave a bunch of people a bunch of free money. Again, it's bad for me to sit here and criticize it because I just so happen to be at a time in life where we needed that money and it went to good use and it saved our butts on I don't know if you can call a house a lemon, like you call a car a lemon, but if you can, we were in a lemon of a house and we needed out of it. And that money really helped, but a lot of people blew it. It was meant to stimulate the economy, and it probably didn't. I don't know.
Well,
how do you feel about that?
Stimulated the economy is done differently. Yeah. You do not print money to stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
So if the cost is everything gets inflated, then it's really not a good deal because you had today's cool thing.
Yeah.
And then down the road, you have all of that value get scraped off of you. So if you're willing to sacrifice tomorrow for what you get today, good deal. But if you've got a attention span longer than a day, right? That's a bad deal.
And these people that see something that affects them and they're like, oh, but look what I got. And they just ignore how they got it or what happened to someone else because of it or how it's going to come back to bite them. They just say, oh, they must have been a good president because look at what I got at the time. And it's like, there's that emotional appeal again is, when I was saying how, I remember one time I was asking our HR person at work, hey, how come my paycheck is a little more? Oh, well, Obama changed these taxes, blah, 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 and you're keeping more money. Oh, cool. Thanks. And they're like, well, you're not just going to keep free money, right? Like it's going to go to something else. It's going to come out later. It's going to whatever. But I think people say, oh, thanks, Obama. I got more money under him. I hate to say, my brother, who's very libertarian, talks a lot about, the industrial military complex and big spending a lot of money on military. And then again, I say, well, the first time Trump was in office, military got raises. Military's always paid well when Trump is in office and they see a lot of benefits. But then you take a step back and you're like, okay, but what are we spending the money on? Does it need to be so much money? Is the money going to where it should, where it shouldn't? So I think a lot of people just sort of see part of benefits and not the downsides of things.
Mm-hmm. Carter says, nobody now can afford health insurance. And, with this whole pharmaceuticals bringing the cost down, we touched on it the last time we talked, and that's another very complicated issue. That's a very danger zone, right? Because it's going to be the hardest thing that he has to accomplish. I would say it would be easier to get all the countries in line and end all the wars going on. That's an easier deal than to take the pharmaceutical industry and uncouple that from everything else that they've got their hands in. It is going to be a huge undertaking. And if he doesn't come through with that, that's the downside, is that that's going to be a big blemish.
Not only I think is it difficult in and of itself, but I think you get far less pushback to say, hey, we want to end wars. But when you want to mess with medications and stuff, now you're going to get pushback from the American people, even if it's a good idea.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up here.
That's all she wrote.
All right. Have a good one, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.